There we go.
Whoa, that was a nice opening there, Chris.
Flying snap.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I try to be so conscious of our little moment right there, because even though none of our audience is quite, in it for the original, like that will be our thumbnail and our first moments of the recording. Then if you're scrolling down through Facebook with the volume on, you gotta get it. You need it.
That was a nice picture of me. Looks like I'm taking a stroke, as they say in Rhode Island. That's what I look like.
No. It's perfect. No, people need it. It's a tradition. It's a tradition. So, Chris, I know it's not time for our, official welcome yet, but show 101. How do you feel?
I feel no older than 89.
Then what?
And 89. I don't feel no
No
older.
older than show number 89. Well,
I have my faculties. And
well, our show number is similar to our temperatures this past week, blazing hot. Yes, Marie Mitchell in the chat already saying lemonade is the drink for the day. We agree, Marie. I'm actually having some sparkling watermelon juice, which I feel is like in the same family of refreshing fruity beverages for summertime.
That's true.
Yeah.
Watermelon sounds really good. Just the actual watermelon. If I had some of that, I'd be chomping away on it right now, but I don't have it. Damn it.
I know that sounds so good right now, right? So Chris, how was this? Well, listen, we've had some really special times these past few weeks, but I'll save that for our official welcome. But this past week in the blazing heat, how are you doing? What did you do? How did you handle it?
Oh, I hate air conditioning. I really don't like it, and I had to resort to it. And not for me, for Twinkle, the dog.
Twinkle.
It was just me and Twinkle for several days this week because the gals were up in Rhode Island.
Oh.
And so it was me and Twinkle, sharing the pad. And, she's a dog. And and so I had to make her feel comfortable. So I turned on that AC.
You had to succumb to the need for AC. For Twinkle.
No, we'll use AC like 3 times per summer.
Oh my God, such restraint, Chris.
Well, we always get where we're at. We get a nice breeze, even on really hot days. And in fact, today, even though it was like
you're like right on a lake, aren't you?
9,000 degrees outside. Out on our deck, there was this breeze. It was delightful.
Oh, well, I was at the beach today, and there was a pretty nice breeze over there. If it was comparable to that, I think the heat would be survivable in the shade.
And did you put on your sunscreen?
I did, thank God. That was an epic sunburn, Chris, that I got in the beginning of June. I was peeling the whole month. Sorry to be gross, everyone, but it was so bad. It was so bad. I forgot sunscreen.
It would just be like a piece of coal or something. If you
I know. Yeah. That would have been bad. But yes, I use my sunscreen. Please, everybody, be safe out there. Wear your sunscreen. Stay cool. Stay hydrated. Hi, Mom and Dad. Say hi. Mom and Dad are in the chat. Hello.
With their new deck.
Their new patio.
I'm sure they were taking advantage of that a little bit in this heat.
Yes, as soon as like the backyard gets shady after a certain hour, it's just delightful back there. And so that was such a wonderful addition to my parents' home. If any of you follow my personal Instagram, you can see a little picture of that, plus me and Mom and Dad. and just a wonderful little spot. I hope everyone out there has a fantastic, favorite summer place or two to get to enjoy the outdoors without, while hydrating and not getting a sunburn, hopefully. But hello to everyone coming in. It's so good to see you. Hey, Balky. Hey, Derek Ivan Webster. Chris.
Yes.
It is 8 o'clock. It is time to give our official welcome to FUMFA 101. That's pretty awesome, you guys. And we are so excited to have as our guests tonight poet Issam Zineh and prose writer, fiction writer Danny Stone. We're so excited to introduce you to them if you have never heard of them or read them before, and excited to hear them tonight. We also want to wish all of the brand new summer 2022 MFA grads congratulations. Huzzah.
No, that's an amazing accomplishment, and so we're so thrilled that you got to go to the island to do this. And
yes,
boy, I can't imagine graduating anywhere else in that program. And boy, so you guys, fantastic couple of years there, and now it's over. And,
now you got to get on. Now you need to reach out to us and share your manuscripts on this show. That's why we're watching it. Yeah, you need to share your work. We're excited to hear from you. So please do reach out. Please do follow us. We would love to hear everything you have to share. It has been a very extremely special past 2 weeks for us on the show. We had our 100th show 2 weeks ago, where Chris and I shared our work, and that meant so much to us to get to celebrate with all of you. We appreciate all the wishes and the support and all of the awesome comments on the pieces that we shared. Thank you so much. It means so much to continue to do this. Also, last weekend was huge. We've been looking forward to doing hosting and making an in-person open mic happen. We did that last Friday night at Eco Evolution down here in South Norwalk, and that was incredible. We've got another one coming up in the middle of August, and you can check out our social media for that and sign up if you are willing to travel in. And then last Sunday was the first alumni day we got to have on the island in Mystic, with everyone getting to see so many people in person that we've only seen in StreamYard. So
the context, it was fantastic and disorienting at the same time.
It was. I'm so sorry if I didn't initially recognize some of you.
Yeah, exactly. We would be doing that like very strange.
It was really
hug people and shake hands and be with people in person.
It was just marvelous. And if you want to see our pics and some videos from all of those events, you can check out our social media and just enjoy those. A lot of friends and stars can be found there. But Chris, before we get into our readings for tonight, tell us what's coming up, Chris Belden.
Next week we have our summer online open mic.
Woo!
Which is just a cavalcade of talented folks. I'll just run through them very quickly. Kiana the artist, Carolyn Dahlman, our old friend Phil Lemos, Alan, Laurel Peterson, Ryan Meyer, Van Hartman, who's married to Laurel Peterson, Dee Allen, Bauke Kamstra, who's with us here tonight, and that's there's 8 folks who are going to be sharing their work, poetry, prose, whatever the hell. And it's going to be amazing.
Awesome. Make sure to tune in.
Next week we have Colleen, not sure how you say her name, Alice, Alles. How would you say that?
We need to find out, Chris. Alice.
And Laura Smith Johnson will be here on the 7th of August, and beyond that, we have many more shows, including our live open mic on the 19th of August, I believe.
Yes, Friday the 19th. And those links are up too for you to kind of RSVP that you will be there to listen or to sign up in advance. So make sure you're following us on everything and check out all of that good stuff that's coming up. But we need to get started with our readings of this evening. Once again, welcome to FUMFA Reading 101. And we are so excited to welcome poet Issam Zineh. Welcome, Issam.
Hey,
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Issam. Issam, am I pronouncing your last name correctly? Zineh?
It's pronounced Zineh.
Zineh.
But you're
Great.
closer than most, Katie. So thank you for.
Thank you so much. I actually, I could go on forever about this, but I studied Arabic for a few years. I'm like almost kind of sort of intermediate. I will try my best to pronounce it correctly. All right. So I'm going to share your bio with everyone, and we're really excited to hear from you tonight. Issam Zineh is a poet and scientist. He is author of Unceded Land from Trio House Press, which was an editor's selection and finalist for the Trio Award, and the chapbook The Moment of Greatest Alienation. What a cool title. From Ethel Press. His poems appear in Agni, Guernica, Gulf Coast, Pleiades, Tahoma Literary Review, The Rumpus, and elsewhere. You can find out more at issamzineh.com. Issam, we're so excited to hear you. Take it away.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much to Katie and Chris for inviting me here. It's such a cool space. It always has a delightful vibe, and we all know we need a little more delight in our lives. And congrats on your 100th show a couple weeks ago. It's a pleasure to be part of 101. And congratulations to Danny, too. I'm really looking forward to hearing Danny read. And thanks to those of you who are watching in real time. And if you're watching from the future, thanks. So I've never been given this much airtime before. So I think I'm going to try to do something a little different that's either going to be well received by some, or it'll be a total disaster. I think I'll read, some of the longer things that I've written. So I'm going to read a little bit from Unceded Land, which is, as Katie mentioned, the release that came out this month, and so you can find it anywhere on the web, or you can reach out to me. We'll make sure we get one in your hands. So the middle part of this, what I thought I'd do tonight is I'll read a sonnet crown. So it's actually 7 poems that are kind of interconnected, where the last line of each poem sort of is the first line of the next. They're independent pieces, but they kind of work together, I hope. And it's also a cento, so the lines come from the work of Wanda Coleman, who's one of my poetic heroes. So I never had a chance to read it all the way through, so I thought I'd do that tonight. So I'll start with that piece. This is the second section of the book, the middle section. It starts with the epigraph from Wanda Coleman. The poem is called "What If a Love Like This?" I'll read the epigraph and get into the poem. Merge our bodies, merge, give, wealth, freedom. Congress cannot legislate away. Wanda Coleman. I caught a starfish second summer after my divorce. You know it's your fault. You were once again standing off in the dark on the borderline between sea and soul. I licked the salt from your neck. Sing me, rivers, the anthem of blue waters, the hymn of my eye the coastline disappears on. Then, this is the dark he lives in. I see myself thrown heart first into this ruin. I throw the symbols, I make reverberations, this compulsion to write one's name, substitute writer for mirror, visionary for window, hack for glass. No one answers, and that fact is a giant fly buzzing. Once I tried to hang myself and got terribly ashamed. Once I tried to hang myself and got terribly ashamed. I laughed, took off the rag I was wearing. The doctor asks me what I am. I say a non sequitur. He is suddenly cool air. Caress the light. My body calls. I have frequent fantasies about running over people I don't like. It is the early dawn. I'm 99% body. My brain has dissolved into basil and blackthorn. I become a name caller, a door through which I escape, another world, smell of fresh, wet, black earth, a fire. We couldn't breathe until he threw water on me. Old son, he steady whispers, provide, he said. Provide. Provide, he said. Provide a fresh spray of mist and neon. Camera action, blood, and shoes. Remember the mountains of shoes? Use people, love things. I offer you whatever incites my blood, whatever cratered psyche, toast-colored skin, and lunar eclipses. This is the purple dawn, this harmony in all my parts. My bowels are in my throat. Can't tell mama about this. Pushed to the floor, but Max is not Max enough. At the tip of each finger, a separate universe. Living with you, he says, is like living with a Gauguin. Lift me through my skin. Lift me through my skin, small, unsophisticated country, 2 hours of the same old cold-blooded bloodlessness, too little for too much effort. I pursue my dramas, those stars. There is other life out there. I sense it. A smell, a hello from months later, a black bird with one red feather, the Chattahoochee, the Cheyenne, the Chippewa, the Cimarron, washing 6 months worth of dirt and the devil off. And the subject of your love? We reign in each other. Darkness parts and a nation's heart is released. I am full. I'm on uptime, have no resting place, cannot rest. Water listening to how I listen, knowing there's a limit. I thirst for the cold white quench. Without you, this city is a pale, rude fiction. Without you, the city is a pale, rude fiction. Your son paints the skyscrapers downtown in late day. The children expect this letter to go unmailed, as have all the others. I am dying in La La in a blizzard of sun where, God, in my smoke, I call you to take the outer skin in, rehumanize it. My father hoists me over his shoulder, holds me after. I take cuttings of his hair and kiss the air. My tongue has grown strong and hard like twin hearts beating in amber. All that talk about blackberries was talk. Will you pay to hear my angst of sob and bathe in it? Do see. Refuse the dark. There are those still throwing themselves into the sea, so to speak. There are still those throwing themselves into the sea, so to speak. Somewhere they are unearthing the evidence, the dark heart. Earth casts up its dead, sky, river, mother. Your tongue plunders my mouth. My love's isolation, my nation and me, our bickerings. Is that what she holds against me? Your eternal, rampant, romantic notions of nobly dying in the cause where crowns of trees inspired by flame extol the night? I will speak to the night. It will listen. Forgive this ruined narrative, begging the first chaos out of calm. Let my grief be pure. The phone rings again. Something clicks. It's dangerous. They have a warrant out for my arrest. He's out here somewhere dead ahead, enemy and lover. I am armed. I will not come to the door. I will not come to the door. I hear voices sing and shout, hear bodies. Bed calls. I sit in the dark in the living room. I decide I may as well walk to keep warm and am suddenly buying money orders at the post office. I believed great and prolonged sex cured cancer. I believed violence. It is imperative that visionaries see groves of perfect oranges and streets of stars. I catch a starfish. Second summer after my divorce. The lotus moon is a lover's wound, and the crows go by. She's on top. My sky is painted to look like a ceiling. It happened so gradual, I didn't notice. We lived off love. It was all we had to eat. Think so. All right. Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm going to do a little bit of a longer piece. I guess we'll just say poems. It's surprising where poems can take us sometimes, and that was the case for me in this one. When we look at ancient Mesopotamian myth, the creation story tells of the first gods before earth, before sky. There was only fresh water and salt water. Their offspring, two rims that joined at the horizon. Then generations of activists and a question of primordial willingness to kill our kids to reestablish silence. The cosmos unfolds as a body politic. One story tells not so much of how the moon was born as how it was saved. The goddess of young corn is warned by her mother not to bathe in the canal. There is concern about the god of spring storms, that he might seduce and impregnate, which of course he does eventually. She refuses him at first on the grounds of her age, then the inexperience of her mouth, inevitability of her parents' protest that she is not a good keeper of secrets and her friends will find out. The god cannot take no for an answer. He orders his servant to build a boat that he might travel from one bank to another to meet her. She has changed her mind by the time he arrives. She becomes pregnant with the moon god. The god of spring storms returns to the city. He is declared a sex offender and banished. He must journey to the far mountain river that leads to the underworld. The goddess of young corn follows her beloved, first stopping at the city gate, then just shy of the mountain river, then at the bank of departures. Each time she meets a different man, gatekeeper, guardian of the river, ferryman, each time announcing she bears the moon in her womb. Each time the different man is the same man. She lays with the same different man. She conceives a second son, then another, then one more. May the sperm, which will become the moon, go heavenwards, and may my own progeny go to the underworld as his substitute, said the gatekeeper, which basically captures the sentiment of the others. The Sumerian word for water is also the word for semen. You are bathing in the canal now because I am attracted to stories of power and sex. The goddess did not know she was sleeping with the god in disguise. She slept with what she thought were three men other than her beloved, all in the span of less than a page. Black river. This is a smell. Gold body. Green stone. These are smells. Oars through water. This is a sound. We are here for the first trimester ultrasound, our second daughter. This time they find a cyst on the umbilical cord. Rare this early in. The technician calls the doctor into the room. He tells us it could be nothing. Since high resolution ultrasound has become more widespread, there's been an uptick in the prevalence of cord abnormalities the technology picks up. It could be a pseudocyst, which he says is nothing, or the fetal heart could grow on the outside of the chest, or the infant will be born and live for 3 or 4 days. One of the moon's brother substitutes becomes king of the underworld. There are 2 versions of that story. I prefer the one where he journeys because death fascinates him. He glimpses death, whose name is Ereshkigal, naked after bathing. They make love for 7 days, each in turn mounting their own riots of color. He then escapes to the upper world, leaving a grieving death. He eventually returns on his own, grabs Ereshkigal by the hair and pulls her off her throne. They make love for another 7 days and stay together forever. It's a long, quiet ride home until it's not. We collapse on the couch. We hold each other longer than we've held each other before and longer than we will ever hold each other again. I step outside for a smoke. The moon is out. I haven't prayed in years. God, if you're out here, please give me a sign that everything will be okay. I hear a plane fly overhead, though I can't see it. I hear my own voice ask, what is it? What is it we're naming here? Thanks. I'm going to read you 2 more poems. This one is called Travelogue, and it leans a little prosy. So hopefully it'll at least still be fun. I paid €10 for a used lighter in Rome, which is the amount I would pay several days later for 2 tickets to the Uffizi. It was the summer Italy beat France in the World Cup. The people of the city were jubilant, the streets the way one might imagine after liberation, but sexier, with flags, but also with Vespas and crop tops. There was something in you I had been describing as a transformative disposition, but only to myself. Having just dropped our stuff at the rented apartment above the cafe on Via Pomponio Leto, we walked several miles through the city, stopping once for a photo in front of Castel San Angelo, which houses the Tomb of Hadrian, both emperor and architect, and his wife Sabina. The building was used solely as a mausoleum for decades before being repurposed as fortress, prison, etc. Alaric in 410 sacked Hadrian's tomb, and on more than one occasion, garrison troops found themselves having to destroy the tomb statues, launching them over the fortress walls to defend against the invading Goths. The French painter Joseph Noel Silvestre depicts one remarkable scene from the sacking of Rome. We see 2 men in the act of tearing down an imperial statue. One man is naked, save for what appears to be a cape, could be wings, and a hatchet hanging down his hip, held by a rope belt. He's buttressed along the statue as his partner, who is the robust naked we see in scenes of antiquity, uses the hatchet man's thigh as a step stool while he places coils of rope around the emperor's marble neck. Hatchet man is necessarily gripping his partner's inner thigh and the small of his back. Back to the Castel. Pope Paul III built luxury apartments within the confines of the mausoleum/fortress/prison, which, given our attitudes now, years later, toward distribution of wealth, we find abhorrent on face, until we learn about Paul's papal bull, Sublimis Deus, which basically forbade slavery with specific mention of the indigenous peoples of the Americas. We end up in Trastevere, where we dine al fresco and learn the neighborhood takes its name from either its proximity to the Tiber, Tevere in Italian, or the fact that it was settled during the ascendancy of Tiberius as an outpost to protect the exceedingly valuable salt beds at the base of the river. The present day neighborhood is being gentrified by foreigners, which drives the locals berserk, having backed the revolutions of both Mazzini and Garibaldi. I tell you about my Tiberius, which is also on the water, and which we call Tabarille with a long A. You practice saying it over and over at dinner, during which we have 2 bottles of wine, and after which we're invited into the restaurant by the 2 bartenders, Barbara and Romina, who've been working that night and watching us all evening. The soccer match is on, and Barbara and Romina repeatedly pour so much grappa that we begin to question their motivation, so we try to distract them from any more pouring. We pivot to Rome on film. And when I mention La Dolce Vita, Romina rolls her eyes and Barbara chortles. Romina, it turns out, is a huge lover of Brian Dennehy and recounts the entire plot of Peter Greenaway's The Belly of an Architect, which neither of us has ever heard of. Dennehy's character is an American architect who travels to Rome after being commissioned to stage an exhibition honoring the work of the mostly obscure 18th century French architect Etienne Louis Bouyer, who is notable, among other things, for his influence on the Nazi Albert Speer. Long story short, Romina says, during his time in Rome, Dennehy's character, who suffers from terrible stomach pain, becomes obsessed with the first Roman emperor, Augustus Caesar, after learning that Caesar's wife is thought to have poisoned him. Dennehy begins to suspect his own wife, who's fucking the co-organizer of the exhibition, of slowly poisoning him. Eventually, he's diagnosed with stomach cancer. His pregnant wife leaves him, and the film ends with the wife going into labor at the opening of the exhibition and Dennehy killing himself. Romina tells us the film was nominated for a Palme d'Or. On our way home, we're so drunk, we forget the street name our rented apartment is on. We can't stop laughing as we retrace our steps. I buy a pack of cigarettes from a vending machine, and realizing I don't have a lighter, I walk into a cafe where the man behind the espresso bar is the only other person, and he's trying to close up shop. I ask him if he has a lighter. Yes. And I offer him €10 for it. I wonder if he still thinks about that night, or if you do, the specifics, the improbability. How do you picture the rest of your life? You laugh at the question. Well, you say, you're in it. You're most certainly in it. Thanks, everybody.
Woo! Issam! Oh my God! Such a powerful, powerful, personal, poignant, and then the timing of your reading at the end there was like goosebumps. Really powerful work there, from the personal to the totally cosmic to the historic, and weaving it all together in these incredibly powerful and poignant ways. And also just with your reading style, I was captivated. I was on this journey. Just fantastic work, Issam.
Oh, thanks. I see you and Chris, so I know I didn't lose two people. Hopefully.
Oh no, we've got a whole bunch of viewers, a whole bunch on Facebook, on a few on YouTube, and we never know how many are on Twitter until afterwards because we can't monitor that live apparently. But we've got 16, 17 viewers out there, at least that we know about, and there are probably more on Twitter, like I said. But yes, you have to go back and read your comments and all the love that people shared out there during your reading later. But Chris, let me let you get a word in. I'm just gushing.
Oh, it was amazing. I can't wait for the Q&A and people's questions and our questions because, well, first of all, the sonnet.
The sonnet crown.
Sonnet crown. I'm so curious about that, and it's so awesome. And then
so awesome.
Other poems with these incredible juxtapositions of, what's going on now with the narrator. I don't know if it's you who this is happening, whoever's telling the story, and then these, the history of this, place in Rome and mythology and all this stuff, the back and forth.
Such an incredible richness of humanity, of pain, of relationships, of sex and romance, and what we believe about ourselves and what we believe about the divine, and how that kind of reflects ourselves, and maybe not even not sort of the best kinds of ways. Just so much to talk about there, Issam. We're very excited for the Q&A.
I never expected Brian Dennehy to show up. But there you go.
Surprise!
That's great, and that totally works with the poem too. I've never seen that film. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. But,
well, we're really honored that that our amount of time gave you the opportunity to share some of these longer works. We're very proud that we get to hear them and hear them live. And you were too humble at the beginning. Say, I hope this goes well. It was fantastic.
Thanks a lot. I do appreciate the space. Thanks a lot. Very
yes,
generous.
Absolutely. All right, we will see you in the Q&A. Everybody save your questions for Issam, because we have our second reader of the evening coming up. We need to welcome Danny Stone. Danny!
Hello!
Hi, Danny. It is so good to see you. I just need to tell everyone who's watching right now that Danny is a dear old friend of mine. We used to teach together and work together at the same intensive English language program. He was my academic director, my supervisor, and was just the best coworker, teacher, person that I knew at the time. And I'm so excited that he gets to share his writing life with us tonight, and all of the incredible things that he's doing, including with his new book. So I just have to give that little introduction before Chris reads his bio. But Danny, it's such a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. I feel like we're back in the classroom, Katie.
Oh my God, I know. New Haven.
Yeah.
Woo.
I'm going to read your bio, and then you'll take it away. Danny Stone's stories are a blend of sci-fi, dystopia, and speculative fiction. They usually take place in a universe much like our own, with a couple of strange twists. His publications include the new novel Strange Faces at the Windows, which was recently serialized on Amazon's new Kindle Vella platform with a paperback self-publishing in September. A novel called Then Comes the Harvest, published originally by Triplicity in 2014 and now trending on the platform Radish Fiction. A magical realist novella called Safe in the Black Sand, 2 short stories in a collaboration by Buffalo writers called Queen City Flash, and a collection of haunted small-town tales called Ghosts of Perryville, which was inspired by Danny's experience growing up in the far reaches of upstate New York. Links to Danny's work can be found at his website, DannyStoneBooks.com. Danny uses royalties, this is awesome, to fund a scholarship given each year to a graduating senior at his hometown high school. So everyone who reads Danny's work should know they are supporting a great cause. You can get in touch with Danny on Facebook at Danny Stone Books, or by email, DannyStoneBooks@gmail.com. Take it away, Danny.
Thank you so much, Chris. And Katie, what a welcome. It's so great to be here, and congrats to you both on over 100 shows. It was also really a pleasure to hear Issam's work right here tonight. That was the first time for me to hear his work, and I jotted down a line from the first piece. There is other life out there, I sense it. That there were lots of lines that popped out, as often happens during readings where things are coming at you, but there is other life out there, I sense it, is felt strong words from a strong voice. So Issam, it's an honor to join you here tonight and to follow you. So my new novel, Strange Faces at the Windows, is a sci-fi story, and the title for the story comes from Washington Irving's Rip Van Winkle, where the main character goes up into the mountains for 20 years, falls asleep, and when he comes back, everything is different. Everything has changed. So I'll read just a quick excerpt from Rip Van Winkle, so you see where the title comes from, and then I will jump into the beginning of the story. So this is from Rip Van Winkle. Strange names were over the doors, strange faces at the windows. Everything was strange. His mind now misgave him. He began to doubt whether both he and the world around him were not bewitched. And with that, I'll jump into chapter 1 of Strange Faces at the Windows. Chapter 1, A Heretic in the Break Room. Alistair stared at the screen in front of him, the word error flashing in red. When he swiped his badge, the door was supposed to open. That was the deal, the contract between man and machine. Now the contract was broken, and he was stuck in the anteroom alone. He found himself wishing the metallic door came with a keyhole. He longed for an old-fashioned key with chiseled teeth, like the key to their old place in Brooklyn, the one bedroom with a balcony over the park. No badge swiping back then, just a simple door with a knob and a keyhole, but nothing was simple anymore. Tinny jazz, like the music endured while on hold, sounded through an unseen speaker. Near the door, he saw a red button with instructions in 5 languages. The English said, "Press for help." He pressed the button and twiddled his thumbs. While he waited, he pictured their old apartment, the yellow kitchen walls. Or were they beige? He hated how details got swallowed by time, like hundreds of book pages reduced to a blurb. At the very least, he hoped to always remember the trees standing outside their window, those giant oaks lining the park, trees as old as America. In a frantic city, those trees had kept him grounded. But that was 3 years ago, what now felt like a lifetime, before his job at Astral X, before Iad was diagnosed. A simpler time, when the branches of trees swayed in breathable air and doors were opened with keys. The droning jazz came to a halt, replaced by a female voice in American English. Alistair, assuming he was on camera, held up his badge as if the owner of the voice could see it. When the door opened, he said thank you, but felt silly thinking a voice detached from a face, especially when the voice belonged to a robot. He couldn't help it. Thanking was an impulse, as if he were programmed to do it. Humans were grateful when their planes left on time, when their babies were born healthy, when their cancers were caught early. Gratitude came with the wisdom that every blessing could be a curse, something robots couldn't understand. Alistair left the anteroom and entered a hallway whose walls displayed landscape photos from Earth, a sparkling shoreline, a meadow of sunflowers, a desert of towering cacti. He stared out the window into space, an endless black blanket with tiny pinpricks of distant light. 6 months into his new role with the company here, he was still spooked by the nothingness. Without an atmosphere, there was no way for starlight to translate into color. On the moon, the sun wasn't a giver of warmth, color, and life, but a whitish ball in the sky closer than all the other whitish dots glowing in the blackness beyond. Besides the sun, another massive ball floated over the horizon. Alistair viewed it through the base's thick protective glass. Earth, fixed in the inky vacuum, was nearly full, like spherical sapphire waxing in a black display case. Ever since coming to the moon, his home planet had hung there, cycling through its phases, inviting those who saw it to return. He recalled seeing his first crescent Earth from the base, an optical illusion as beautiful as it was baffling. It was hard to believe entire oceans could be hidden in shadows. As he approached the repair station, an elevator door opened and one of his colleagues appeared with a miner. Lon's shoulder-length black hair tumbled beneath her yellow hard hat. "Clogged," she said, rueful. She patted the robot as if it were a dog about to be put down. The clog was undoubtedly the work of sticky dust. The moon was littered with the stuff, fine grains of dust reeking of gunpowder. It could penetrate spacesuits, tank treads, eyeballs, skin. Sticky dust clogged the miners, stranding them in craters when the traction on their treads degraded, and unclogging machines was expensive. Alistair leaned down and took a whiff of the ruined miner. It smelled burnt, like July 4th after fireworks. It was an old model H3 miner, the kind Astral X had brought from Earth when they first opened their quarry on the moon. The machines were built to mine helium-3, an isotope abundant in the moon's crust, as Alistair was trained to say as the company spokesperson. Helium-3 is a safe, plentiful, non-radioactive form of nuclear energy, and there's enough on the moon to meet energy demands on Earth for 1,000 years. He looked down in pity at the miner. A couple of years ago, this machine was state-of-the-art, but newer miners could auto-purify helium-3 from regolith. Until now, purification had been a human job, a career for people like Lon. Things were changing fast. Lon sighed as she looked down at the fried machine. Alistair knew her job was in peril. Employees in purification would either be reassigned to other departments or let go. As communications director, he would have the unenviable task of having to put a positive spin on the bad news. "Is your badge working?" he asked her, hoping it wasn't. He didn't want to be alone with the problem. When Lon said her badge was fine, he tried not to react and started towards Celeste's office. She'd know what was going on. Along the way, he took out his phone and pulled up his work email. Error. Beads of sweat formed at his hairline, first the door, now his email. He didn't want to think he was being targeted, but knew in the back of his mind it was possible. He stepped into a break room where a lone man was sipping coffee and flipping through an old-fashioned print magazine. Alistair didn't know print magazines existed on the moon. They seemed like a relic of dusty library stacks and doctor's office waiting rooms back on Earth. The man reading the magazine looked a good 10 years older, with almond eyes and sleek jet black hair trimmed short at the sides. His snappy suit suggested he might be visiting the base, possibly from Jade Hair. Alistair approached, trying to appear calm. "Excuse me, sorry to bother you." The man jumped at the sound of Alistair's voice and set down his coffee mug with a thud. "You're not sorry," he snapped. "You mean to bother me. Don't apologize. Own it. If you want to bother me, go ahead." The man stopped, took a breath, then let out an unhinged laugh. "Sorry, don't mind me. Lot on the mind. Been on the moon too long." The word lunatic, from the Latin luna, was derived from the age-old belief that when viewed from Earth, the moon could trigger insanity. Its changing phases drew out hidden neuroses, and full moons, it was said, were the worst. Living on the moon meant the moon was always full, always tugging at your insides. The vast barren terrain did little to provide a sense of place. There were craters to dwarf the Grand Canyon and mountains to rival the Rockies, lava plains from ancient volcanoes, and water ice hidden in shadows. It was supposed, though not based in science, that Earth could have a reverse full moon effect on people when they saw their home planet from afar. Certain people tended to crack after a while. At Astral X, these people were informally known as terratics, and Alistair wondered if he was encountering one now in the company break room. Treading carefully, knowing terratics were a fragile people, Alistair asked the man to check his access to email, but the man didn't answer, instead staring out the window into space. Alistair was in no mood for games and in no place to provide comfort or reassurance. He was a communications director, not a therapist. When he turned to leave, the man called out after him, holding up his coffee mug like a truce. "Been a rough day," the man said, excusing his strange behavior. "I came in here to get away from it all, then you came in asking about email like that's important. Sorry." The latest humanoid robots could make decent small talk. Alistair liked the new Jade Hair commercial where the little girl threw a tennis ball to her puppy on the moon. The girl and the puppy both seemed so real. But Alistair knew without a doubt this man was human. Robots didn't take coffee breaks, nor did they have mental breakdowns, a benefit of being brainless. Suddenly it dawned on Alistair he knew this man already. He'd met him briefly at one of those Jade Hair Astral X mixers where employees from both bases got together for drinks and appetizers. The man's hair was longer then, but Alistair knew it was the same guy. "I remember you," he confessed. "We met last month at a happy hour. You told everyone you liked to drink olive juice straight out of the jar." He remembered the factoid from an icebreaker where everyone was made to go around the table and share a weird personal habit. The man looked scared, as if hiding in this break room from something hunting him. "Olive juice," he echoed back, distracted by whatever was on his mind. "Don't think you're supposed to drink it. Probably gives you cancer, but what doesn't these days?" He chuckled morbidly. "At least now I know you're not a robot. Robot wouldn't care if I drank olive juice. They can't tell weird from normal." There were an increasing number of humanoid robots on the moon, mostly personal assistants and sex dolls, but Alistair couldn't understand the appeal. In his opinion, machines shouldn't be made to look or act human. Actual humans did that just fine, and there were plenty of those to go around. The Teretic pulled out his phone. "Email works fine, by the way," he said. "Yours doesn't?" Without answering, Alistair thanked him and walked out, happy to get away. He walked down the hall without looking anyone in the eye, remembering he needed to call his mother. Today was her birthday. To his surprise, when he swiped his badge at the office, the door opened. Perhaps the anteroom malfunction earlier had been a fluke. Then a colleague turned a corner, caught his eye, and ran up to him with a worried look on her face. "My badge isn't working," said Esha, a new engineer on base. "Did SD shut down our access?" Alistair's throat closed, adrenaline flooding his system. He saw an agent at the end of the hallway and recognized the uniform, U.S. Space Division. The agent was questioning a staffer in repairs. I didn't know they were here," he said, wanting to run, but with nowhere to go. "What do they want?" "Beats me," Esha said. "I assume it's something to do with Jade Hair's test launch. Isn't that today?" "Yes, supposedly," Alistair said, glancing nervously down the hallway. "That's what Jade Hair has told the public." Esha grinned. "Aren't you supposed to know more than the public?" On another day, Alistair might have laughed. Esha went on, "Not sure why SD would come all the way here for a test launch. You think something's wrong?" As he fought his mounting anxiety, Alistair said, "No panicking before we know the facts. I'll talk to Celeste and sort everything out." He hurried away toward his boss's office. No panicking before we know the facts. That was exactly what he'd told a terrified Iyad 3 years prior as they waited for test results. That day, the doctor called them in, her expression grim. Iyad was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive cancer requiring intensive treatment. Alistair and Iyad sat across from the doctor, powerless to biology. As the doctor spoke, Alistair felt Iyad squeeze his hand as if clutching a cliffside. The cancer might have spread to his lymph nodes. 5-year survival rates were bleak, but the doctor insisted there was reason to hope. Depending on the success of surgery and chemotherapy, Iyad could very well surpass 5 years. He never made it to year 5. Iyad was 26 when he got the news and died 1 month after his 28th birthday. Alistair was left untethered, unmoored, and alone. After the funeral, he applied for the job at Astral X. He'd been working a job he didn't hate, but Iyad's death made him re-examine his life. He wanted more than mediocrity. He wanted to be part of something big, and what Astral X was doing felt huge. He learned about the company when it made headlines by sending probes toward Proxima b, a planet 4 light years away. It was a Goldilocks world, not too hot, or too cold for liquid water, just right for life. Astral X had sent a fleet of phone-sized cameras to snap pictures, a 20-year journey at a fifth the speed of light. Alistair and Iyad had watched the launch on the TV hanging opposite Iyad's hospital bed. A giant leap for mankind. Iyad was glad to see humanity reaching out toward the glow of another sun. The mysterious planet next door, as the news liked to call it, gave Iyad and Alistair something far away from hospitals to dream about. Because of those final moments of hope, Alistair couldn't help but connect the Proxima mission to his husband. That was why, after Iyad's death, Alistair applied for the job at Astral X. When he got an offer to work at the company's Long Island campus, Astral X was still getting tons of press in the wake of the Proxima mission, and this gave Alistair plenty of work to do. Plenty of work was just what he wanted. When idle, his brain insisted on drifting back to Iyad, obsessing over what-ifs, recalling hospitals full of beeping machines and desperation. The heavy workload of his new job was a welcome distraction. Every day he came in early, stayed late, and it wasn't long before he got offered a promotion. The day the promotion came, his boss Celeste invited him into her office, where he sat in a blue swivel chair across from her, trying to keep cool in the presence of management. Celeste was petite in stature, but had a large personality. Speaking excitedly, she said, "Alistair, you've only worked here a short time and already you're invaluable. You started after we launched the Proxima probes and wrote more press releases in a month than some do in a year. You've got a good eye. You even catch my mistakes. Which brings me to why I asked for this meeting. You know we're sending our first batch of H3 miners to the moon. Our contract with Bravo Nuclear is set. Now we need to go up there and bring back helium-3. There's a lot riding on this deal. We're going against the grain. Nuclear is unpopular. People are afraid of what they don't understand. It's our firm belief helium-3 will change all that. There's no toxic waste, no pollution, and the stuff is basically in limitless supply. You can see why our moon mining project must be successful. For that to happen, we need a great messaging campaign and a great messenger. That messenger could be you. So what do you say? You want to come work for me on the moon?" There in his boss's office, Alistair didn't hesitate. With Iyad gone, blasting far away from Earth sounded wonderful. The farther, the better. And so, 6 months later, here he was, working for Celeste on the moon, but with his badge defective, his email blocked, and SD agents on his tail. He exited the elevator and stepped into reception, where a water cooler stood next to a giant potted fern. Real or fake, he didn't know. A man typed furiously behind a desk, his bald white head shining under fluorescent bulbs. Calendars in English, Mandarin, Spanish, Portuguese, and Russian hung behind him. "Hello, Mr. Pratt," the desk attendant greeted, businesslike. His eyes were big and blue behind his glasses. Then Alistair saw it. The man wasn't human. It was something about the eyes, the way the robot's gaze was trained on him, unblinking, lifeless, as if looking through him, recognizing a face without any concept of personhood. "I need to see Celeste," Alistair said. The receptionist doubled back in confusion, a sophisticated reaction added to the latest models. "You don't have an appointment, Mr. Pratt. Should I tell her it's urgent?" Out of the corner of his eye, Alistair saw an SD agent leaving reception with a laptop in a clear plastic bag. Evidence. "Yes," Alistair said, unable to hide his alarm. "It's urgent." Thank you very much for listening.
Oh my God, Danny, you can't leave us like that. Whoa, whoa. Yeah, Danny Stone. Sorry. My reaction. Totally. I mean,
we were like,
That's the reaction you want.
exactly. Totally. Danny. Oh my God. From the very beginning, just like haunting mysterious. Things get a little creepy and suspenseful. Our heart is breaking for the death of Yad. And then we're like, but what's happening? What's wrong on the moon?
Something is definitely not right on the moon. Yeah.
No, things are not okay.
Kate wrote a comment on there. Space is scary.
I wrote that. Yeah, I did. That was me. That was not Chris who wrote that from FUMFA Live. I wrote space is scary. Well, and Kate Andrews just said exactly my sentiments. WTF, Danny, I want to hear more.
Love it.
Oh, that was awesome. And Mom says now I have to read it, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Danny, that was just so awesome, so intense, such fantastic details, getting us totally captivated and like nervous at the same time, getting us all involved. I remember you reading a bit from this at an online chapter at Verse in spring of 2020, and I remember being like, oh, I can't wait for this. And now it is available, everyone, on Amazon.
Yeah. Just through at my website, DannyStoneBooks.com, there's a link there to read it on it's a serialized platform through Kindle Vella.
I love this.
It's 24 chapters, and it was a fun experiment to release one a day and to talk to readers and fellow sci-fi writers through that process was very fun for me. It was a brand new process to release kind of one a day. And then, I'll have the paperback come out on September 1st. So this has been a very exciting kind of long collaborative. Like you said, I read an earlier version at our writers group in New Haven and got feedback there. So this has just been great, a wonderful, long and enjoyable process. So to finally be able to share the finished product is really exciting. So
it's so awesome, Danny. And we're going to need to hear more about this in our Q&A, which is coming up right now. The Kindle Vella platform is so fascinating and want to hear a few more details about that. Let's just give another round of applause for Issam Zineh and Danny Stone. Woo! Yes. Both of you were just absolutely incredible. And, Chris and I find in our readings, we do our best to kind of pair people together that will be just a great combination, but we often don't realize how the different readings will resonate between each other. So many different like cosmic and relationship based, kind of connections here. We're kind of dwelling very much in the, in the mythic cosmos and also the literal cosmos. And just these very, very powerful and poignant and sort of haunting moments in both of your pieces, though they're very, very different. Just awesome stuff. But we need to kick off our Q&A. Audience, get your questions in the chat.
Questions in the chat. Come on,
get them in there. But Chris, I'm going to hand it over to you for our famous first question.
We'll start with Issam. This is a very basic question. How has writing and being a writer changed your life?
Yeah, very, very basic question.
This is the biggest question.
It's easy, but it's basic.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest thing, to be honest with you. And I'm sure others have said this too. This, if it weren't for the kind of the writing life, I wouldn't be making these kinds of connections with people that I, would have not otherwise met, exposed to ideas I wouldn't have otherwise been exposed to, but just sort of this sense of like interconnectivity on a human level. I mean, I think that's the most sort of important thing for me anyway. I think writing also sharpens my senses, in a lot of ways. So I kind of, I don't know, maybe it's a little opportunistic to kind of like walk around my day and think about, well, that would make a good poem. But really that's sort of like a sinister motivation. But I guess the beneficial side effect is it really concentrates me on my life. It's so easy to walk around and be disembodied and just kind of, just just kind of in the grind. But
Totally.
yeah, I think that's what it's revealed to me, just kind of a deeper level of being in the world and being with other people.
Issam,
yeah.
do people in your life, your family or your close friends, do they know you're doing that?
Do they know I'm using that?
They do now.
That's right.
Right, yeah. I know that sounded so bad. Can you edit this afterwards?
No. Chris is sister.
That is what writers do, but people, I don't know, they're not always conscious of that idea that writers are going around looking for stories. Their ears are bigger.
Chris, don't let Chris stress you out, Issam.
I'm not too stressed because I think the people that know me don't know I'm not super shady. But I think I probably said it wrong, because it's not that being in the world is the substrate for the writing. It's that the writing somehow has attuned me, to the world. And so it's really the writing. Yeah. And then I try to live in service to, in some ways getting it down on paper is in a way, in service to the existence, like to the living. So, I guess but it is funny because I do wonder, I've been looking through this thing and I'm like, do people think this is I bet you people think this is autobiographical, you know what I mean? And so there's just so much, I guess that's
where my poetry is. But Issam, that so resonates. And I think that is such a beautiful and meditative process of processing life. And I think that resonates with other people who are in the audience as well, that you've been able to see and capture and crystallize and experience an image, a story, kind of bring it together in these ways that kind of resonate with each other. And I feel the same way. Writing has done the same for me. Whereas if I hadn't been a poet, I might just say, well, that's an interesting observation or thought that I have. But since that is something that I do, and I'm like, I need to capture this and I need to work to capture it without bruising it. And that is a precious thing. And that does help you observe your life better. I totally get it. And, and sometimes, like situations, people can identify themselves maybe in some of my pieces, but, that's just part of what happens. But that really resonates, Issam, and the community aspect, 100%.
And you didn't say it wrong at all. You said it exactly right. And it's just that the people we're around don't always think about it. Like, and if they did, they probably wouldn't say anything to us because
Chris, no. I need to see which story I'm in. It's about time. It's about time, Chris. Where am I in the stories of Chris Belden? But we need to pass this question to Danny. Danny, how has writing changed your life?
Well, first to your comment about wanting to capture something in the world and then express it without bruising it, I think you said.
Yes.
I have come to the point where I accept that I'm going to bruise it, at least in draft 1, and that editing is a long and iterative,
so true,
multi-year process, and I've come to enjoy that. But I think, and in that, getting back to your question with the how's it changed my life, writing to me feels healthy, and I mean that in like not everything that's healthy is fun all the time.
True.
I go jogging, and jogging is healthy, but I don't always want to go, like when it's really hot, like today. You don't always want to exercise, but it does feel good. I don't always want to eat salad, but I mean healthy in that sense that I do derive a lot of joy from it. But it's something I just feel I have to do because it makes me feel healthy. Yes. So it's just exercise, and sometimes, I want to do it more. Sometimes I'm not really feeling like it, but I do it anyway. And so I don't know. Writing is just it's just something that I'm really happy that I feel that way about it, because it doesn't feel like a preoccupation necessarily taking over where I can't function, but it's a place where I can always go, and something I can always do, and I feel good and healthy doing it. So it feels lucky.
I love that.
I do too. I think that's the first time we've heard that writing is healthy. But as soon as you said it, I said, You're right.
Yes. I completely agree with you, Danny. That is such a cool way to put it. We're going to be quoting you now for the next 100 episodes. We do when we get
writing is jogging. Exactly.
Writing
Danny said so. Yeah, exactly.
I really agree with you. I think it's so important to creating is healthy, communicating is healthy, putting all of these things together into a story. We're analyzing things, we're kind of making a world, we're making things make sense. All of those are, I feel like, are really positive, healthy things, even if what we're writing about is something scary or something traumatic. All of this energy is coming together to create something that you're putting out into the world and that you're believing in. There's so much good that goes into it. It would make sense that it's a healthy process for you.
Articulating something that maybe that you're struggling with or whatever, and science fiction particularly is feels good for that because then you're able to put it, okay, it's on the moon, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, nobody who's reading this lives on the moon, and yet you can explore all these issues of great loss in of love in your life, or paranoia, or whatever it is, all this universal stuff.
Totally.
And which is
anywhere in the universe, it's going to follow you.
That's right.
Well, articulate that is healthy, just like there's a therapeutic element to it as well.
Absolutely. I totally agree, Chris. What an awesome conversation we have going already. We have a whole bunch of questions in the chat, and I am so excited to get into them. You know what? Why don't we start with one from Derek Ivan Webster? He has a question for Issam. He says, Issam, your work did such a great job of seamlessly incorporating both myth and historical reference. Yes, absolutely. Could you tell us a little more about where those influences come from and how important they are for your writing? Awesome question.
Oh, that's such a great question. Yeah, thanks a lot. I guess I'll take it in two parts. I mean, when I first started writing a couple of decades ago, I don't know if this is true of most writers, but at least for me, the tendency was to go to our mythologies, whatever they are, whether it's sort of like the great mythologies of religion, the imagery of the monotheistic religions, or, Greco-Roman, or whatever your sort of thing is. I think there's a tendency to, at least for me, to see that as real kind of ready-made. Ready-made sort of infrastructure for me to kind of explore. And so early on, I think a lot of the work was focused on that. And I was probably unskilled at it, to be honest with you. That's why it was so attractive. It came with its own sort of boundaries and a ready baked imagination. And so and then as I evolved a little bit, I substituted those with, I guess what you would call your personal mythologies, right?
Yep.
These two pieces. So I don't know that my that my work really is in that. There's much of that in my work, but it'd be worth thinking about. I think in Unceded Land, there are several kind of allusions, several poems that are direct allusions. Like I have a poem called Backstory that's basically imagining what Echo and Narcissus, their relationship, like. Narcissus is like, why does he have so much baggage? You know what I mean? Like, so that like retelling of myth. So there are a few pieces like that. These two in particular were challenges to myself. In the first in Mesopotamian myth, it was really an attempt to kind of get into a myth that I wasn't familiar with, explore it, and then it became kind of a platform for exploring the personal trauma. In the second one, Travelogue, the real this is the second long one, that was an attempt to think about a place where I'd experienced some trauma, some sort of unsettling experience, and which was in Rome, and then it was like, well, now try to really describe that. And I think I avoided describing what that experience was. And I just basically turned it into a travelogue. So in a sense, it's an interesting kind of like distance that the speaker creates for themselves, where they're not really so much diving into their own vulnerability as they are, talking about sort of the landscape that might be adjacent or relevant to kind of what they're going through, which ends, I hope, in a tender moment at the end of the poem. So I love that kind of stuff. I mean, I love that sort of work. I love it in others, and it's just something very attractive on a fundamental. I guess all the great stories in the world share that whole kind of Joseph Campbell, you know, the sort of the monomyth that we're all very much attracted to across cultures.
Right.
Absolutely. It's so accessible to so many. Like I connect to that, and then you're connecting that to the personal and to what you're seeing, you know, in these stories that you're telling, these journeys that you're having. And it's just such a richness that really reflects, you know, the richness that we're walking through all the time with, you know, the myths that we've heard, the memories we have, and the moments that we're kind of currently in. Really awesome. You know, to pass a little bit of a similar kind of question over to Danny, you must have had to do a level of research for what you shared with us tonight in terms of in terms of moon and helium. I'm not gonna describe it all right. And mining things on the moon, and I think there is a different kind of maybe weaving happening there, and a level of kind of research that you've done to kind of weave this kind of sci-fi and
right.
You know,
but also there's
future.
There's also the Washington Irving, you know, Rip Van Winkle thing, which is
right.
Which is like, I mean, it's like, okay, I'm gonna read a sci-fi novel about you know, a guy on the moon. You're not gonna immediately think, well, Rip Van Winkle will be the epigraph to this. In a delightful way. So I mean, it's not a myth, but it is an old American kind of, you know, legend that you're into in this story that takes place in the future on the moon. So there's, you know, there is a kind of a corollary there.
Yes.
Danny,
yeah, no, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Chris, because yes. Danny, how did these different pieces sort of come together? Did they happen very naturally? Are you very familiar with these scientific details already? Is it a personal hobby, or did you do some research? How did it happen?
Well, going to the moon has long been a personal hobby of mine. Sometimes in the middle of an English class, but anyway, that I'm teaching.
Oh my God, Danny!
But no, I think in the sci-fi, you know, from books that I've read, sometimes they lean a little more what sometimes is called hard sci-fi, where you see kind of leaning on real technology, real things that do exist, and you know, if a spaceship is going to get from here to Mars, I'm thinking what's his name, like Aurora by Kim Stanley Robinson, like that's like everything. It hasn't happened yet, but if it did happen, this is how it would happen. This is how you get artificial gravity. This is how you get all these things. And I'm always in awe of authors who can do that.
Right.
But those books sometimes, so I have a part of me that is in awe of that and really likes that. But I have another part of me, a little bit what you said, Chris, that gravitates toward the more fantastic or dystopian and a little bit more imaginative, as opposed to the technology-based sci-fi, which is, you know, more Ursula Le Guin, or it doesn't have to be necessarily based in, it can even feel slightly magical, even though it's technology that we're talking about. We're just kind of out there in a way that's hard to explain. So I would say there's a little of both, because you're right. Helium-3 is a thing. I researched it, didn't go into the book knowing what it was. You know, so I did a lot of research to try to set this up in a way that could feel real to a reader, so that as we get into the book, it gets a little more out there, you might say. I mean, literally, because it gets farther from the moon even and Earth. It goes somewhere else. But yeah, and that way I do like that it's tied to, you know, a story like Rip Van Winkle that is out there, and requires a bit of a leap outside of what is real.
So cool, Danny.
So yeah, bit of both, I guess. Yeah.
That is so great. Well, you know, my dad is not on Facebook, but he texted me a question for both of you.
I love it.
So we have a lot of questions in the chat, so we need to get to them. But my dad would really love to just ask a kind of a very simple question. How did both of you, and it's similar to our first one, how did both of you really get started writing? Were you writing since, you know, your earliest memories, or was there kind of a passage where you're like, this is something I want to do? Issam, and then Danny.
I've always been writing as a kid. Like, it's a common story, I think, as a kid, just sort of, and especially gravitating towards poetry. You know, the Arabic language, I think, you know, Katie, is very sort of almost like poetry is embedded in it in some ways. It's sort of, you know, full of figures of speech and sound and all this. So I think in many ways, the language, my first language as a kid, and hearing it around the house, that was sort of part of the environment. And then I just found it very early on to be a very natural way to express myself, and to it was just fun, you know. In terms of the serious piece of it, I think that was in college. I'm a scientist by training, but I kind of made a decision to go in that route, but I still had sort of the creative side that I you know, kept going in college for a little bit, and I was writing then, but I didn't write, you know, after I left college, I didn't write for basically 20 years. So
wow.
Yeah, so all of this is fairly new to me. I would say,
oh my God.
the pandemic really, the quarantine really kind of, in many ways, if we're going to look for a silver lining, opened up this community for me that I didn't even know existed, because I hadn't looked for a couple of decades. So I started
sonnets. That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was writing, so my first writings as a kid, I was writing totally like iambic pentameter Shakespearean sonnets. That was so natural to me. You know, I'm a formalist.
Wow.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm not bragging. I'm just a nerd.
That's incredible. No, we're excited for it. We love it.
Out of diapers and into iambic pentameter. I love it, Issam.
Doesn't everybody walk around talking in iambic pentameter?
Yes. Issam, that is so cool. A quick follow-up question before we pass this one to Danny is, do you have you written poetry? Have you published in Arabic, or have you ever done a combo English Arabic? Do you footnote? I know that's a huge question for a quick little follow-up.
I'll make it super quick. So I have done hybrid a little bit, but it's mostly words. I would say my reading level and my writing level is very rudimentary. But I feel it's really important to kind of either write in other languages or consider translation. You know, and we can sort of talk about the ethics of that. I grew up in mostly a Latino neighborhood, so Spanish is actually, in terms of like grasp of the reading and comprehension, probably Spanish. So I've been working on Spanish translation a little bit.
Cool.
But in terms of my own writing, the language has peeked in a little bit here and there, but the subject matter has definitely
awesome.
You know, come through, at least in this first collection.
That is so fantastic. And I heard a little peek of it at Tabarille for yeah. That's awesome. Just I could go on about Arabic and everything. But anyways, Danny, we need to know, how did you start writing? How did you get into it? How did you get here?
How did I get here? Oh my gosh. I don't know. I mean, I barely know what I'm doing, but I just keep doing it. That's the short answer. I feel like that has been the same answer since I was probably 5. So, you know, you just keep on trying things, and we'll see what happens. So
I love it.
All I can say.
I absolutely love it. Okay, I'm gonna jump to this question here. Chris, I think I'm going to grab this other one from Bauke, and then we have some questions for Danny as well. But I feel like this one is kind of, we're kind of on the personal at the moment. So this, he said, for Issam, isn't everything autobiographical, just not linear? Do you not learn your own history as you write? I feel like that's very true for me sometimes. How do you feel about that, Issam?
I've been thinking about this lately. I don't think everything is autobiographical in the sense that it's sort of like high fidelity, transcription of personal experience. But I do think at least in the writing, it comes from very deep resonant sources. And, Linda Gregg, there's this great essay that I was looking at that she wrote called The Art of Finding, I think. It's online, you can find it. And basically it's that we have our, deep sources, whatever that is, family, political rage, sexuality, identity, whatever it is that's within us, that's the deep source of the, I guess that's where the poem, where the work arises, and what gives us sort of like this indelible signature that it's like, okay, well, that's recognizable as a Issam, that's recognizable as Danny, and so forth. So I think in that sense, that's that impulse, like that creative impulse comes from there, and that is totally informed by personal experience. Yeah. Now, when the stuff, as I mentioned, in Unceded Land is like, man, I really hope my dad doesn't take this the wrong way. Or, I hope people don't think I'm divorced, because I'm like, I'm not. Those themes like pop in, and so that's not autobiographical, but it comes from my, maybe anxieties about, failures in relationship, or, something that comes from a deep experience, a life experience that was not necessarily, it's not a transcription,
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think poets and maybe songwriters are the ones that the people all automatically assume that, oh, this is you.
Right.
Talking versus, Danny, there's not gonna be that many readers that say, well, Danny's been to the moon.
They would be wrong.
That's where it gets a little fuzzy, because who knows? But I think fiction, people get away with everything.
Yeah,
and, that's true.
Poetry, no. If you say, "Well, I was just after my divorce," people are like, "Oh, he's divorced.
He's divorced. He's divorced." Yeah. That's true. That's true. We shouldn't be always assuming it when we listen as well. But I like what you're saying, that it's a place to reflect in this kind of nonlinear way, and sometimes that's closer to the autobiographical and further away. But speaking of the moon for Danny, Debbie McGarvey says, Danny, do you think the worlds you write about are places or people you want to live and thrive in? How about you? So would you be interested in living in this world that you were writing about? Would you be interested to like take a look beyond? Is it something that you would want to experience?
That's a great question. I think my gut reaction is that I feel like I am living in a world that could lead to that one,
right?
Without many changes in this one. If things were on autopilot and continued on, I like to think of not necessarily this book is set, the day after tomorrow or 10 years from now, but a universe next door where it could be happening right now with a couple tweaks. I guess the answer is yes and no.
Yeah.
I would like certain ease of travel, and I forgot the line that I pulled out from your work, Issam, but the feeling that there is other life out there. I sense it. I think it was something like that, and I happen to sense that something is going on that I don't understand, and so anything that I can do to inch myself, peel back the curtain a little bit, I would obviously love to do. But in doing so, uglier things can emerge. And the book has both of those in it.
Awesome.
So I guess it's yes and no.
That is so cool, Danny. We have one more question flying in here before our last question to both of you. We've just gotten so many great ones. Thank you, audience. So this is from Derek Ivan Webster. Danny, the prose in your piece had such a clarity, pulling us through a speculative world with a clean and natural pace. What writers do you consider influences stylistically? Awesome question, Derek.
Such a great question. And thank you. Stylistically, I've read a couple books by Colson Whitehead, and it seems like his prose is kind of punchy, and sentences there's not a lot of fat to be trimmed. And then there are, like, I read a book recently, a novella by Ursula Le Guin, The Lathe of Heaven, and I come back to her kind of frequently. She has a way of being direct, and I think you said, what was it, clarity, pulling you clean, like a clean and natural pace. She can be lyrical and then clear and go back and forth in a way that keeps pulling me forward. So I don't know. Every writer has their gifts with different lyrical sentence structures, but yeah, Ursula Le Guin I come back to a lot. Yeah.
That's awesome. Danny, thank you so much. Chris, I gotta pass it over to you for our famous last double question for Issam and then Danny.
Issam, so pearl of wisdom for those folks out there who are watching, who are maybe just starting out, they're thinking about writing, they've just graduated from their MFA program and they need some kind of inspiration, a pearl of wisdom for them to take tonight and help with their writing, and a book recommendation for them and for us.
The pearl, Danny already said it. I wrote it down. I barely know what I'm doing, but I keep doing it. I love it. There's this Picasso quote. I think it's attributable to Picasso. It's like, inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. Well, I wish someone told me that 20 years ago, because I was waiting for the muses. I wasn't writing because I thought, well, you write when the muses speak to you, but they were radio silent for a couple of decades. So it dawned on me that you're actually supposed to sit at a desk and write every day, or every week or whatever. So that to me, that was a piece that I wish I would have. I wonder where I'd be now with my writing if I had written in a bit more of a rigorous kind of way. So I would say do the work. It is work. As far as books, well, Danny Stone's new book, but I guess if I had a second one, because we got to figure out how that ends.
Yeah, we must, Issam.
I don't know if this is showing up. This is Hayan Sharara's These Trees, Those Leaves, This Flower, That Fruit. It's a beautiful new collection of.
What a nice title.
Yeah.
Well, it's wonderful. It's just a tremendous exploration of what it means to be in kind of deep relationship, ecologically, I guess you could say, but interpersonally more so. And what I took from this book is there's a lot of tenderness in this book, even though he's writing about subject matter that is not always it's a little rough. So I it got me thinking a bit more deeply about a poetics of tenderness. So it's a lovely collection. So I would recommend that one.
Thank you so much, Issam. And over to you, Danny, a pearl of wisdom and a book recommendation.
No one's ever asked me to give a pearl of wisdom, but I think habit is more dependable than inspiration, for sure. So habit is great. Inspiration, it comes when it comes, or it doesn't. So don't wait for it. And if you think that what you might have to say feels silly or outrageous or even wrong, then all the more reason to write it. And in terms, seriously, yes. and in terms of book recommendation, I finished not too long ago a book called The Atlas Six by a newer writer named Olivia Blake, and I'm using her example on purpose. She's in her 30s. she published her book online. No, she couldn't find a publisher, and a lot of writers get it's hard to find. Developed a fan base. It went viral and got picked up, and now she's like, making it big. And the book is so good. I mean, I the audiobook in particular, the voices, it was very talented the way it was read. And it's just great to see that writing can come from anywhere. It can come from the internet. It can come from a classic traditional publisher. There's really there are great stories to be told and read all over the place. Yeah, write them and read them.
Danny, from both of you, awesome pearls of wisdom and recommendations. Danny, in bonus overtime here, I totally forgot to ask you to tell us a little bit more about Amazon Kindle Vella, the way that you serialized and slowly released and had this awesome interaction. This is a different kind of publishing that people should think about.
Yeah, it was really fun. And the first 3 chapters of all the stories on the platform are free. And then they have, it's basically like you're inside an arcade for books. And Amazon gives you tokens, and you're like, "What's the Amazon overlords are giving me tokens to throw at chapters?" I mean, it's kind of fun when you're in there, and like, chapter 4 is 20 tokens, which is like 20 cents. So you're basically paying chapter by chapter to binge like a TV show almost.
I love it.
And it's it's new, and who am I to be highbrow about how stories are told? And in a way, it's fun to kind of. I've listened, done a lot of podcasts, and
cool.
The serialized kind of storytelling format seems to kind of be coming back from the old radio days. So, and I honestly had so much fun getting feedback as I went, and I had people saying, "I want the next chapter," and that's so fun. That's just it was so fun to interact with readers as I went, and to hear some ways that I might improve and things like that. So. Very, very cool.
I think that's awesome. And I love more ways to perform and to share. And I tell that to people too. I say, hey, come on to a live stream like ours, do live readings, go to open mics, have your own readings in your own venues and share it in all these different kinds of ways. Traditional publishing, so awesome. But there are also these fantastic new ways, and it's so cool to hear that it was such a great time for you and went so well.
Serializing, I mean, that's how Dickens wrote, all those great novels.
That's right.
It's old school in a way.
It's old school.
Cool, yeah.
That is so cool. We have to thank you both, Issam Zineh and Danny Stone. Thank you so much. Incredible readings. Thank you so much for spending the evening with us. You're both just absolutely magnificent.
Thanks so much.
And
this has been wonderful. Thank you both so much for having us.
Thank you, and we hope we can have you back again really, really soon. We're dying to hear more.
Before your 200th show, maybe.
Yes. And thank you so much to our audience. We love you. Show 101, Chris, was fantastic, wasn't it?
It was fantastic. And next week we have our open mic with a lineup that will blow your head off.
It's going to be incredible. It's going to be very cool. You better come back next Sunday night. Anyways, thank you so much, Issam and Danny. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.